The question operator is a shorthand way to handle errors on a result type. Here I have a function called f1. The type that it returns is a result of u32 and string. If it is OK, it will return a u32. If there's an error, it will return a string. For this example, I'll keep it simple and then print the function that is called and then return OK of 1. And then inside the main function, I call this function f1 and then do a pattern match. If it is OK, get the inner value and then print it out. Otherwise, if it is an error, then print the error. This pattern is something that you'll see often, so using the question operator, we can make this code shorter. Let's rewrite this logic using the question operator. Okay, so first I'll copy this code, the code that will call the function f1. Now, when I call this function, currently it returns a result of u32. Let's use the question operator. The way it works is you call the function, and before the semicolon, you put a question mark. What this will do is it will unwrap the inner value if it is a OK. In this example, it simply returns an OK of 1. So the value that is returned over here will be the inner value. So let's call this inner value x. Okay, but how about if this function was to return an error? Then how does this question operator behave? How does it handle the error? Well, what it will do is it will automatically return the error type. The error type is a string. So this function, if it returned an error, then it will return an error inside this main function as well. So we need to update the function signature for the main function. Say result. Let's say for the OK type, we'll just return an empty tuple. But for the error type, this error type has to be the same as the error type of this function. The error type of this function is a string. Here we need to put a string. The same error type, string over here and string over here. There's still an error. What we need to do is return an OK. OK with an empty tuple. Okay, so here we get the inner value. Let's print this inner value out. Print ln x is equal to x. Print the inner value and then return an OK with an empty tuple. However, if f1 returned the error, then this function will simply return the error with the inner error message of type string. Let's execute this code. Then we get x is equal to 1. Okay, how about if we change this to an error? Error of f1 error dot toString. Execute the code again, and we get error, f1 error. So notice that this question operator automatically handled the error. When f1 was called in, when it returned the error, it automatically handled the error. So that's what the question operator does. The question operator by itself is not that useful. It's useful when you have multiple functions that return a result and the type of the error is the same. For example, let's create another function. Let's call this f2, and then we'll return 2. Let's create another function, fn, let's call this match. Inside here, we'll call the function f1 and f2. f1, and then f2. Let's also get the inner value of f1, f2, since they are u32, add them, and then return it as a result. Let's say that res is equal to, and then let's say that res is equal to. Let's call this res1, and let's call this res2. We're going to get the inner value of res1 and res2, and then return them. Say the return type will be result of type u32, and the error type will be a string. Okay, to get the inner value, we'll use pattern matching. Let's copy this, and then paste it here. Say res1. If it is OK with the inner value, then we'll return the inner value. Otherwise, if it is an error, then here, we'll exit this function call, return error, and then with the error. And then let's assign this inner value x to a variable, x1 is equal to. Okay, and then let's do the same for res2. I'll remove this and then copy this, paste it, and then change this to res2, f2, x2, okay, and then the rest are the same. At this point, if we get an OK with an inner value from the function called f1, and we get an OK with an inner value from the function f2, then finally, let's add these x1 and x2 together and then return it inside of OK. OK, x1 plus x2. Okay, so this is a lot of code. What it's doing is it's calling f1, get the result, and then pattern match on the result. If it is an OK, get the inner value and then assign it to x1. Otherwise, if it is an error, then exit this function call over here with the error message from f1. And likewise for calling the function f2, pattern match on the result of calling the function f2. Get the inner value, assign it to x2. Otherwise, return the error. And if there was no error up until this point, then add the values x1 and x2 and then return it. Now let's rewrite this using the question operator. I'll call this function f question, since we're going to be using the question operator. Remember, over here we call the function f1 and f2, and each time we did a pattern matching to get the inner value. Okay, so how would we do this using the question operator? Let's say that the inner value x1 is equal to, call the function f1. And then remember, we need to put a question mark and then semicolon. This will get the inner value. We do the same for x2. Call the function x2. Assign it to the variable x2. And then in the OK case, when there was no error, we simply return x1 plus x2. That is the code. These two codes basically do the same thing. Notice how shorter this code is compared to here. Let's call this function f question. Let z is equal to f question. The function f question returns a result of U32 and string. So let's pattern match to get the inner value and then print it out. Match z. Print z is equal to. Execute the code, and we get that when we call the function f question, it calls the function f1, f2, and then the inner value is equal to 3. Adding the result of f1 and f2, it returns a 3. Okay, so you might be thinking that if you can write this code shorter using a question mark, then why don't we just use question mark on all of the functions that return some kind of result? Why do we need to pattern match when we can simply use the question mark? Well, the limitation of the question mark is that the error type must either be the same type or they must be able to be converted into the same type. So what I mean here is that the error type for f1 and f2 are the same. What happens if let's create another function and then have a different error type, let's say Boolean, and then let's return a 3. So f1 and f2, error type will return string and string. Function f3, if there is an error, it will return a Boolean. The types are different. Let's see what happens if we put this code inside this function f question. Let's say that x3 is equal to f3. Call the function f3 and then try to use the question mark to omit pattern matching on the result of f3. Save the file, and then you can notice that we see an error. Let's try to see the details of this error. Inside the terminal, run cargo build. Okay, and then here's the error. Okay, and then here's the detail of the error. The trait from Boolean is not implemented for string, which is required by result of U32 and string. What this means is that the Boolean type cannot be converted into a string. And why does that matter? Why is it required that the Boolean can be converted into a string? Well, let's go back. And we said that the error type of f3 was Boolean, and the error type of f1 and f2 are strings. And then we also said that when we're using a question operator, the error type either must be the same or the types must be convertible to the same type. In this case, the error type is string. However, the Boolean, the error type that is returned from function f3, cannot be converted into a string. So this is why we see an error over here. And to fix this error, there's two things you can do. The first way is to change this to a string. Have the same error type. Then save the file, and you can see that the error goes away. But how about if this function had to be a Boolean? We had to return a Boolean for an error, or another type that is not a string. Then how can we change this code so that this part of the code compiles? Well, in this case, what you need to do is pattern match on the result of the function f3. So let's copy this code and then paste it here and then say rest3. Call the function f3. Get the inner value x3. Pattern match on result 3. If it is okay, get the inner value and then return it, assign it to x3. Otherwise, if it is an error, notice the type of the error for the function f3 is a Boolean. So we somehow need to convert this Boolean and then return a string. Okay, well, here's a simple way. We can simply return a string message. Let's say f3 error dot to string. Save the file, and now the code compiles. So this is why you cannot always use the question mark operator. Sometimes you still need to use pattern matching. The question operator is only useful when the error type that you're returning are the same or can be converted into the same type.